Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Origin Story, where we dive into the story of how your favorite creators built their channels. I'm Mike.
And I'm JP, and tonight we're joined by Shane Whatley.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks for having me.
Not too much.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have another smart home enthusiast on the show. I look forward to this one very much, and we're talking about how amazing your background is. It is simply beautiful. I'm jealous. I'm jealous.
Oh, thanks, man. It's just two simple lights. That's all it is.
But it's curated content right there. So for those who don't know Shane is the face behind his self-titled YouTube channel. On Shane's channel, he's on a mission to create a simple automated home using Apple's Homekit technology. He helps his viewers take the guesswork out of how their technology will work and if it's really going to simplify their life. Outside of YouTube, Shane is an artist, a father, a fisherman, and a husband. His art can be found in the lunch boxes of his children every morning or on his Instagram. You can check it out. It's really, really, really good. His channel is home to over 45,000 subscribers who have watched his 129 videos over 3 million times. Tune in every Sunday to learn how Apple HomeKit's technology can make your life easier and your home just a little bit smarter. Thank you so much for being on the show tonight. I really look forward to where this is going to go. You clapped too early there, JP.
Thank you, man. That was quite the intro. I appreciate that.
Thanks. I'm starting to get somewhat decent at writing intros. I'm not the best, but we'll get there.
No, I like it. I'm gonna have to take that elevator pitch there.
I'm happy to send it to you in any way, shape, or form. So let's get started with that passion for art and where it began. Like, when did you find out that you were a very good artist, or did it take some time to develop that skill?
I'm still not sure I'm very good, but it's something I've just always liked doing. I remember when I was a kid, I was actually 10 years old. Is when I remember watching something, I don't know if it was cartoons or what, and it's when I realized that somebody was making all that stuff that I was watching. I was like, wait, so somebody is getting paid? Like, that's what they do for work, is drawing cartoons and animating stuff, and I was around 10 years old and I just started drawing all the time. So yeah, ever since then,
That's changed. That industry has changed a significant amount in the past at least 10 or 15 years. My dad would always tell me he swims like at 5:30 in the morning twice a week. And one of the guys who used to swim with in the morning was on the team for Batman. And so he would draw all of Batman, but he would draw it all by hand. And every movement they would put into these comics and any kind of animation was done by hand. Now it's all, as we'll learn later, digital, which is crazy. It's a cool change.
That's changed a lot. Yep.
Are you a better artist now?
Oh,
am I a better artist now?
Like your work now?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, for your work. How do you like your art? Like, how do you think it's progressed? Where do you think you're at right now?
I mean, you talking about just like my cartoons my lunchbox notes that I draw my kids every day. Excuse me. It's definitely better than I was. I've gone through phases throughout life, since I was 10. I draw for a while and then I'll fall out of it for a few years. Went through, like, I guess it was high school, I got really into like drawing graffiti kind of stuff, and then college years I got really into drawing tattoos and started getting tattoos and stuff. And then I grew up a little bit, I guess, and I just stopped drawing for probably many years. I did paint, and I've always just been a creative doing something. But yeah, the lunchbox notes was just a fun way. I actually have a stepson, and it started with him. He was probably 6 or so. And I was like, let me just, I saw somebody else that was doing it, actually from South Carolina too. And I was like, man, that's a really cool idea. I think I'm gonna have to steal that. And he was like, dude, go for it. And so I just started doing it for him as a way to kind of try to connect with him, a little bit, and also just get back to drawing every day. And, if you do anything every day, you're going to get better. So, yeah, it was kind of a cool way to get back into it,
how have those notes progressed over the years? Like what did they start as? Was it like obviously you're not drawing stick figures and like a question bubble that says I love you or something. What were they originally and how have they elaborated to now?
I actually remember the first few were on an actual napkin. So it was like Sharpies on napkins. I mean, they still look kind of cool, I thought, but they were actually on napkins, and then I just started doing them on paper. But you know, I always kind of kept the kind of, like I said, since I was a kid, I was into like drawing Taz and like different cartoons and stuff. So I kind of went back to like being a kid, you know, drawing stuff for them, just whatever they were into is what I was drawing. So I did all of it by hand. I got into using like the Copic, you know, the artist markers. Did those for a few years. And at some point, I'm not sure when, a few years ago, I got an iPad and I started doing everything on the iPad, which was a lot of fun. It was easier because I didn't have to carry my markers everywhere, you know, and yeah, I'd go to work, and during my lunch breaks, I'd just sketch out these little things and print them off later and, you know, put them in the lunchbox.
That's pretty cool. I want to ask one question about where before you said that you drew inspiration and started drawing because of those iconic cartoons like Taz. What other cartoons were the ones that drew you in? And are you still involved in watching, you know, animation and cartoons outside of like, obviously we know that you've watched Frozen 28,000 times, but you know, outside of that,
at least. Gosh, I don't know. When I was young, I just remember Taz was like, for some reason, I loved the character Taz, and I had like a little, like a cup or something. I actually still have it. It's at my office and I keep pins in it, but it has like all the different poses and facial expressions and stuff. And I remember I was 10 years old and I just drew every one over and over until I could still draw Taz by memory now because of that. So yeah, I just really like the Warner Brothers stuff. And then eventually I started getting into the Disney just because I appreciated, you know, like once they started doing Toy Story and bringing in the computer animation, like, you know, I was always kind of drawn to computers a little bit too. So I was just fascinated by the whole process. So I drew inspiration from all that. And then to this day, I mean, like you said, I've seen Frozen 1,000 times, of course. But I still, like, my wife kind of teases me a little bit because I'll sit and watch the little kid movies and I'm as into them as the kids are. You know, we just saw that new Disney one. I took my daughter to see it in the theater, actually. First time we got to go to the theater in like a long time. The Raya and the Last Dragon or something like that. It was a pretty awesome movie, I thought, you know. So I'm just a big kid.
Yeah, me too. I when we were talking before this, I have a 1.5. Oh, he's not 1.5. He's a little under 1.5, and he can't sit through a movie yet. He doesn't have like the patience. JP calls him Luca Bazooka. He's just all over the place. But I look forward to being able to sit down and watch Toy Story again and all those movies because I'm the same way. It's just such great nostalgia, but it's also it's gonna be really fun to see it again. So
oh yeah, definitely.
That Raya video movies up on our Apple TV upstairs all the time on Disney Plus, and I'm like, oh man, I should watch this. But he would make it like 38 seconds and be like, okay, I gotta go rip something off of this wall or do something.
Yeah, well, hey, just keep putting it on. You never know, one will stick.
Yeah,
I remember with my daughter. I can't remember. She was a little older than that, but not much. She was maybe 2 or 3, and it was the same way. It was like Barney, and I was like, oh my gosh, please, enough with Barney. And then one day, I think it was Finding Nemo. I'm pretty sure it was the first one. And I was like, yes, I'll take it. We can watch. And we watched Finding Nemo like every day for a year or something, but it was better than Barney. So
that's a nice transition. Yeah. And you know what? I think it's the second Finding Nemo. I don't know. My fiance and I watched it not too long ago, and it is a hilarious movie. Like there's some funny, there's good movies. And back to your kids. So they're big into sports. So growing up, did you play a lot of sports growing up too?
Not a lot. I played baseball for a while up until I guess middle of high school. And then I just kind of fell out of it. I moved so much growing up that it became hard to stay into anything. I did also do karate for a number of years and baseball, and that was it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And is it interesting now seeing your stepson or your son playing baseball? Is it weird sitting on a sideline versus that, or is it a cool enough? It's like kind of like what we're talking about with watching these movies from your childhood. Now with your children watching sports, is that kind of like reliving it or seeing a different angle of the game?
Yeah, I mean, it was fun for a while. He doesn't play baseball anymore. He does play football. But we, for years, from the time, he was in coach's pitch up until about high school, he played travel baseball, and it was a lot of fun for, just being back on the ball field. My dad would come and, we'd hang out and, just, help him out and just watch him. It was a lot of fun, but that travel baseball, man, some days we'd spend, 4 or 5 games in one weekend out there. So it was a lot of time at the ball field. My daughter basically grew up on the baseball field, I usually say. So
I have no doubts about that. I was a swimmer, and my mom's always like, my son's in swimming lessons, and she's like, oh, he's gonna be a swimmer. I was like, I hope not. They're so long and boring. Like, meets are so long and boring. I do something fun, like let's get a soccer game, go. But then I guess you get into the travel soccer and you're at like driving 3 hours to do something. To play one. Yeah, it's got to be crazy, kid. But the beauty is you'll do anything for the kids. So
yeah, that's true.
And so you talked about moving a lot, and so you grew up on military bases. And just thank you to your father and grandfather who have 58 or more years of service together in United States military branches. Amazing to have that. And so you grew up on the other side of being in the military, which is being on the bases growing up. So can you kind of tell us a little bit about that culture?
Yeah. And thanks for that. Big shout out to my dad and my grandpa. They're both just awesome guys. And he was an officer and he retired as a full bird colonel. And so, we moved a lot, I guess, to say the least. My younger brother was born in Germany. So I lived over there for, I think it was about 3 years. I was really little. We moved from Germany when I was about 5. And then we just kind of moved around every few years up until, I graduated high school, basically. I always say if we got 3 years in one place, I was lucky, So wow. Like we lived in Kansas for 10 months, I remember. Back and forth in North Carolina, spent a lot of time in North Carolina, lived in Virginia, moved a lot.
A lot of moving. Now, did that make you and your siblings closer? Or did you guys fight a lot growing up?
No, we were pretty close growing up. I think it probably did make us a little bit closer, because we always had each other through all of that. It was always starting over somewhere. And I mean, it was frustrating for me because, it take a little while to meet new friends and stuff like that. And it's like, starting over, here we go. But you kind of get used to it, then you kind of don't, you know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it definitely does. And I couldn't imagine, you get used to the uncertainty or kind of going through that whole routine, I would imagine.
Yeah. Like I said, you kind of get used to it, but then when it happens again, you're just like, oh man, it's worse than the last one. It felt like every move, it seemed like got harder the older I got. So, but looking back, I have just a huge admiration for my dad and what he was doing all those years. And like, he worked so much, but was somehow always around. It felt like he was always around. I know he wasn't because he was working a lot, but it felt like he was, he was always at our baseball games and karate. He did karate with us and stuff like that. That's so cool. He was a beast, man. He would get up at like 4:30 in the morning or something, go do PT, work till like 8 at night, and then get off and go do karate and baseball games. I'm like, I don't know how he did it, but yeah.
He's got that work ethic of Jocko Willink. He's just saying the same kind of thing. Yeah. Every morning, that guy posts a picture of his watch at 4:30, and I mean,
right
through everything. I mean, I couldn't imagine that through all the little years that you were a little one in Germany and doing all that in different time zones and waking up for all these crazy things. 29 29-year average between your dad and grandfather of service is something that's at this point in the world kind of unheard of. Not many people spend 29 years in a single career anymore, let alone 10 months, right? So like even in one city or something like that, you don't spend a lot of time like that. It's pretty cool to see that passed on there. And so you landed in South Carolina, and then you ended up going to school at University of South Carolina, as you called USC.
That's right. I can't say USC outside of South Carolina. I forget that sometimes.
I know. Yeah.
The USC of the South. So
I think they actually changed like the official thing now. It's U of SC or something like that, but nobody here says that.
No, I can only imagine. But it makes sense. Locally, it is USC, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, it's actually funny because I was born in South Carolina, oddly enough. I was born on Fort Jackson, and we only lived here for a number of months, like 6 months or something like that. And then they ended up moved once or twice, and then went to Germany when I was about 3. And I never lived in South Carolina until my junior year of high school. So ended up coming back kind of like full circle, which was weird. I had some family in South Carolina, like in the Charleston area. So we would come and visit, holidays and stuff like that. But never lived in North Carolina a lot, but never in South Carolina until high school, and did my last 2 years here in South Carolina of high school. And literally I could hardly walk across the stage and get my diploma before they were like moving again. And I just said, I'm just going to stay. I'm so tired of moving. And I got like some minor scholarships that allowed me to go to school here. So, I was fortunate enough to be able to just stay here. Went to USC or University of South Carolina for 4 years, and, just made it my home.
Yeah. And you studied media arts, correct? There? I
did.
Yeah. What made you go into that? Was it just kind of that passion for kind of art growing up, or was it kind of like, hey, here's the list of majors, pick one?
No, it was that realization I had when I was 10 years old, and I was like, dang, people are getting paid to make cartoons. But the thing is, South Carolina, they didn't, the university didn't really have a good animation program or anything like that at the time. I remember going in there and I was like, that's what I really wanted to do. In my head, that's what I was going to do once I got to college. And they just didn't have anything available. The closest thing they told me was media arts. So I said, okay, sign me up for that. I wanted to go to like an art institute or something like that, but it was just so expensive to go out of state and everything. So plus I was tired of moving anyway. So
you gotta move again. Yep.
Yeah, stayed here, did media arts, and it kind of got me into a lot of stuff. I really enjoyed it because we didn't have a lot of that kind of stuff in high school at the time. Nowadays, it's amazing. You can learn all kinds of stuff in high school, as far as like career prep goes. But then we didn't really have a lot of that. So once I was just kind of killing time really in high school. Once I got to college, it was a lot of fun. I was learning Photoshop and learning, web design. And in fact, I really kind of took to web design because, at the time it was Flash, but I was able to learn animation. And so I was actually teaching myself a lot of animation and stuff using Flash kind of on the side at, in my apartment and stuff at nights, just because that's what I was interested in.
Yeah, so doing a lot of graphic design, kind of starting that video creation process. Just funny, like it still sticks around today, right? It's awesome. I think that's kind of it. So you go from there. I guess let's talk about, so what happens when you graduate college then? So you get this degree, you graduate from, we'll call it USC.
All right. Yeah. Appreciate it.
So what do you do? So what do you do after that? You graduate, like, did you lock down a job, like, like before you graduated, or what did that look like? What happened next?
No, it was a tough time. I graduated in 2007. And if anybody was around then, that, it was not the best time for the economy. So A lot of creative jobs and stuff at the time were kind of being cut, being fresh out of college, no experience. It was not an easy time to find work, especially in, let's say, like a smaller place like South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina. So yeah, that was kind of tough. I did have an internship, but that didn't lock down a job or anything. So I was actually lifeguarding for a while at a community center when I was in college, and I kind of just stayed there and kind of worked my way up, ended up being the aquatics and recreation director at this little community center. So I did that till I was, a few years after college, until I just kind of got tired of that and left and just did some other stuff,
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I feel like we see that a lot, especially nowadays. We're like, we're from a kind of a similar era in a way, and it's like a lot of us when we graduate, it's like, where do we really want to go? Where do we want to apply ourselves? So I always find it interesting to kind of see like where do we end up kind of going down this this pathway of after we get our degrees, especially. Especially now. I mean, you talked about, hey, like high schools now, like you could probably come out of high school and have maybe more experience than some people did back then, as far as, learning your graphic design, videography, banner ads, digital media, those type of things. So it's always interesting to see. Yeah.
And so it wasn't for a while, you went through these other jobs that potentially, I think those are the ones that give you some character that make you realize what you don't want to do the rest of your life. And if you're never really settled and really super, super stoked on what you're doing, then you're always kind of keeping your eyes and feelers out there. And so you had some feelers out and you ended up getting a job doing creative creation. Great word. So you ended up using this major now, and that's where you are today, and what has stemmed then. So, is it nice to know that like in the day 9 to 5 that you're using and finding more and more passion within what you do every day?
Yeah, it's awesome, man. I really enjoy it. So, especially because I stayed hopeful, and I just, like I said, since I was 10 years old, I kind of had an idea. It changed a little bit, to kind of web design and graphic design versus animation, but that creative, computers and creativity, I knew there was going to be, that's how I wanted to make money or make a living. But yeah, I kind of, after I left the community center, I just realized I couldn't grow anymore there. Wasn't much for me. So I left. I actually worked at a box plant for a number of months, and actually it got bought out, and I was risked losing my job. And that was a rough job, 12-hour shifts, night shifts. My daughter was a baby then. There were some pros and cons, working there, because I'd work a few days, 12-hour shifts, and then I'd have maybe 2 or 3 days off. So it was a lot of quality time I got to spend with her. So pros and cons, but it was definitely different. I wasn't getting, any of my creativity fulfilled by working there, I guess. And then, it was kind of like, again, crazy full circle. I got an opportunity to go work with the Army, doing, interactive training products and stuff like that, which is really cool. So I'm using computers and I'm using my creativity, and I'm able to create products that, the soldiers and stuff are using, the students. And I'm back with the military, which is kind of funny,
Never where you would have thought you'd be, right? And doing something that you love. And you say like animation is maybe not something that you're doing day to day, but we were talking about this before we started recording, that there's an video that you did create, which I would say doesn't have, Taz-esque animation, but if Taz was made and created in 2020 or 2021, it would have had the same kind of animation style to it, which is that very modern look, digital-esque kind of item. So you're still doing what I think you were meant to do at 10 now. I see it in the content you're creating, so it's cool.
Oh, well, thank you. It was really funny, because that position, building those training products, is actually what got me really into video editing a lot more than I ever had before. So I was always the kind of guy, like through college and everything, I'd make slideshows and stuff of like the year and our friends and the parties. And, I was the guy that was making those and giving them to friends and family and stuff like that. So I tinkered a little bit, but I never really got too deep into video editing. I did a lot of other stuff, graphic design, web design and things like that. But it wasn't until that job where, I started tinkering a lot more with video editing and motion graphics and stuff like that, which is where I started really having a lot of fun and kind of trying to take it to the next level a little bit with what I could do,
Yeah. And you kind of found like a niche little spot that you're going into as well. Like kind of some of these training products and things that you're making, I'm sure is like kind of building a niche. Like you're going to start getting more and more of that. What's the word I'm thinking? I don't know why I can't think of it, but you're getting that proprietary knowledge within. So you kind of just keep going a layer and layer deeper. But one thing that you mentioned that I kind of like is like you were the guy that put together slides or videos or things like that, which is funny. So we look into your YouTube channel now. And if you've ever gone through and sorted from your oldest videos to now, all your first videos are kind of vlogs going out fishing, like taking a trip or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Doing things like that. So you've got 129 videos. You're almost at 3 million views now, which is awesome. About almost 45,000 subscribers. So I mean, tell me about when you started out. I mean, vlog strips, you go from there, and then we'll talk about how you got into product reviews, which is like kind of interesting. But like, what was kind of like, when you made the channel, like, what did you just like, I just want to put it up there to save a memory?
Yeah, it's funny. And I leave those old videos up there because, I've thought about taking them down. I'm like, you know what, why not? I'll just leave them up there. It's, it's me. So it is what it is. And I mean, I had a lot of fun with those. So the YouTube thing kind of started. So all these years that we're talking about after college, I actually did freelance in some way or another. So even when I was working at the box plant or the community center, I was freelancing as much as I could just on the side, whether it's did a lot of graphic design for a while. And then I kind of went into doing more web design stuff, building websites and stuff like that for people and clients, just in my spare time. And once I started working with the Army, I got really interested in the video stuff. So I started doing more freelance. I kind of just tried to do whatever I was interested in, whatever I was into is what I would try to do and make extra money doing it. And so I started doing a lot of freelance video editing. And I was using like the online platforms, like, I don't know, like Upwork and stuff like that to just get clients, and people would hire me and I would just edit their videos and stuff like that. I'd do it at nights and on the weekends, and what's that?
Like build a portfolio just by doing that kind of work and stuff like that.
Kind of, it really wasn't so much about building a portfolio. It was just about me just getting better at what I was doing and what I enjoyed doing, and making a little bit of extra money, never hurts.
Yeah.
So I just did that for a while, and eventually I think I just got tired of editing other people's videos, honestly. And I was like, you know what, why don't I just take this time that I'm doing editing other people's YouTube videos,
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's people like recording with a phone and stuff like that, and they're sending me their stuff and I'm having to edit all that. I said, why don't I just work on my own stuff, and just see what happens, And that's kind of where it started. And I just started making my own videos, and, I did some of the vlogs just for fun. Again, it was kind of documenting just me trying to get better at both the editing and being on camera. Some of those old ones are hard to watch, man. I was not very good. What's that?
They're not that bad. Trust me.
Shoot.
We've watched way worse on the channel.
Well, that's very kind of you. Thank you. But they are still hard for me to watch. But, because I had done all this editing and stuff behind the scenes for a long time, both professionally and on the side. So when it was time to be in front of the camera, that's something that I was just not very comfortable with and not very used to. So I knew I needed to improve if I wanted to do it. So I was just like, let me just go ahead and do it and see what happens. And I did some of the vlogs for a while, and I got to the point where I was like, I need to probably make this about something. You know what I mean? Because nobody really wants to watch my vlogs because nobody knows who I am. Nobody cares what I'm doing, except maybe my family, and they probably don't even care. But I decided to do something that I was into. I was just starting to get into, my smart home stuff. We had moved to this house that we're at now not too long before that, so maybe like a year or so before. So I knew I was going to be here for a while, and I said, let me just start documenting the process. That's really all I was doing. If you go back to like those early videos, I did not have a lot of HomeKit accessories or smart home accessories. I still don't consider myself an expert by any means. It was just a matter of me kind of going through this process of building out my smart home and just documenting it along the way in hopes that maybe it'll help somebody else who's trying to do the same thing. I remember it was so confusing at first for me, and there was not a lot of people doing, especially HomeKit stuff at the time. There's a lot more now, which is awesome. But at the time, it was like so confusing trying to figure out the platform and like what hubs do I need and all this kind of stuff when you just don't know anything. So I said, this would be kind of a good thing for me to just kind of document, So that's how that was born.
And there's been
it's kind of a wild west, like you're kind of starting out on this frontier where technology is new and you're kind of piecing it all together, right? Which is funny. Like Mike and I talk about this all the time, and the people that we talk to, a lot of it just starts out with vlogs, like doing these vlogs and doing these things, and then kind of like figuring out like, I'll make the videos and make this and this, and then it's like you land on something and you start going from there. Do you remember the first product you reviewed on YouTube?
I want to say it was a light strip.
It is light strip. Light strips. Yep.
Yeah. It was pretty bad.
I mean, it's informative at the time, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But you know what? The thing is about it, I knew at the time they sucked. Honestly, I kind of thought some of it was okay, but in general, I knew what I was doing was not that good. But I knew, first of all, nobody's really watching, so it was okay. And I knew I was just going to be getting better, like that's what I was doing. I was like, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to put it out there and I'll get better, so.
Yeah, and then it's funny, people start to look for it. But then now, I mean, I think that was your first product review, and I think the second version's out. I think you just review the second version of that?
Of that particular light strip?
Yeah, I believe so.
Gen 2 of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Volcanic?
VocaLink, that was the first one. I don't know if I did a second review of it. I know I did do I installed those in are you talking about the one where I installed in my kitchen?
Correct.
That might be the one. Yeah. I wouldn't necessarily review, more of just like that was kind of like just documenting a fun project, something I always wanted to do. And I just happened to use those light strips. Yeah. I think actually in that one, I did a little flashback to that first one of those videos. I did a little flashback to that old video because, it's kind of fun just to like poke fun at the old stuff, So
it's what you got you there, So.
Yeah. And two things there is, you started at a really good time, because 2 years ago was kind of when like the all inclusive hub. There was a bunch of brands trying to build the hub that would control everything. No one really succeeded at it until like Google and Apple and Amazon. Those three, Samsung, even I would say Samsung SmartThings is kind of like, not even a fourth runner. And Wink, after they got hacked, dead. So it's an interesting thing, because it really does that. You got to pick an ecosystem and move with it, because you can't be walking through your house and using Alexa, Google Home, and HomeKit. You're going to drive not only yourself nuts, but every person in the home.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I drive my wife nuts anyways. But yeah, I agree. And again, when I didn't know anything about this stuff, and before YouTube, I was just looking it up on my own. I was like, why is this so confusing? Like, I gotta, and I knew that I wanted to do it right from the beginning. So I did do a lot of research. I was reading blogs and again, just not knowing anything about any of it. I read up a lot, and I was like, that's so confusing. And I decided, I was kind of already all in on Apple products, phones and stuff like that. So I decided I'm going to go this route. and I just kind of taught myself what I need to know. But there are people that use all three platforms or a few different platforms. But like for me, I just wasn't trying to do that. And again, I just wanted to document what I was doing. Like I didn't really want to make videos using those other things because I didn't really have any interest to use those, in my own life. Now that may change one day, I don't know, and who knows, maybe I'll make some videos about other stuff, but I just always wanted to stay true to what I was doing. I don't want to make videos on these things that I don't really want to use in my own life. So, and again, at the time I don't know if maybe there's one or two other YouTubers that were doing like only HomeKit stuff, but there really wasn't a lot. I mean, there was tons of Alexa, a lot of Google Home, and you started seeing, there's these YouTubers that'll kind of review all the different tech gadgets and things like that. But I was like, I'm just gonna stick with HomeKit and roll with that. So
yeah, I guess I mean, you look at all that, like what essentially drew you to kind of like this whole smart home like niche that you're in?
I guess just in general, something about it. I just really enjoyed the smart home thing on a personal level before the whole YouTube thing. I think it's like the problem solving, it's kind of like problem solving the way I look at it. You're figuring out how to automate something to make, your daily life easier for whatever reason. And it was just a lot of fun for me, Again, I was kind of always drawn to computers. So tinkering with, I'm not like a programmer, or I'm not really any good at a lot of that stuff, but it's just something that I'm comfortable tinkering with. So it was just kind of a natural fit. And again, just being something that I was into is just what I wanted to make videos about. So I had no idea I was going to be making, HomeKit videos, 2 years later. So
well, HomeKit's come a long way. I remember when early in because you said it right there, which is very accurate. The industry has had a major shift in the past 4 years where you had to literally be a programmer to make things talk to each other. You were tossing those little IR nodes all over that were all run back to a massive IR distributor on a rack. Mm-hmm. And someone had to walk into your house with a laptop, put in code, or some programs and some companies had drag and drop-esque things, but you still had to have someone who paid to come in there. And Apple HomeKit and Google and all these kind of companies had come in and made it the DIY side of it and made it a lot easier. But original Apple HomeKit to now, what have been some of those changes, and how much easier has it really gotten?
Yeah, it's definitely improved some. There's still, there's pros and cons to all the platforms, I would say. Excuse me. One of the, people say there's not a lot of product categories still for HomeKit. So that's probably one of the downsides. Like there's still no robot vacuum that supports HomeKit natively. But one of the things that drew me to HomeKit from the very beginning, again, when I was doing all this research, I wanted things to be simple. Maybe because I'm just simple, I don't know, but I wanted all my stuff to work in one app. I didn't want to be using different apps, and HomeKit from their first iteration of the Home app has done that. They, it doesn't matter what manufacturer makes the device. If it supports HomeKit, it'll show up in that app and you can control your devices. And that was one of the big selling points for me. And again, it just had the user interface, which is something that, I kind of gravitate towards, good design, being, graphic designer and stuff like that. So, and then already being into the Apple, just computers and products and stuff, it was kind of a natural fit. And then once I learned about the privacy, which is one of the big, strong points of Apple HomeKit, once I learned all that, it was, kind of a no-brainer for me.
Definitely the opposite of the fundamental expectations from the other companies out there. They're the opposite of the I mean, I guess like the baseline of what they're going to do with your information, how they're going to do it. They don't care.
Yeah.
They don't store your routines. They don't make it so that when 52 times you buy or you make a coffee with your coffee scene, it sends you an email that you need to get coffee soon.
Yeah, exactly. And there's always going to be some downside. I'm not going to say any one platform or company is going to be perfect, but their stance on privacy is good. And you can probably, if you dug through those old videos, you could probably see an Alexa device in one or two of them, because I did have some at one point early on, just because I thought, I needed to kind of get into, try the different things. That's before I ever had a HomePod or any like Siri speaker. But at one point, I remember Amazon was just in the news one too many times for the Ring cameras and stuff, and I was like, I think I'm done with this. And then I just went kind of all in on HomeKit.
Well, the major limitation on them is the requirement, instead of having a HomeKit hub, which ended up becoming the Apple TV, but you still need to have a chip on your manufacturer device that is HomeKit enabled. So you still have to go through their product, which is a good thing, because then the IoT crazy companies out there that you don't know where they're being manufactured or what the security software on it is, that now has access to your network and all of those things. I don't want to go, JP and I were talking, we don't want to go too deep into that, but it does create some privacy and security from the manufacturer standpoint too. So it's pretty cool that they block on both sides of software and hardware.
Yeah. Well, and they changed that to be a software requirement at one point, and I think that really helped push HomeKit forward a lot. I think we saw a lot more HomeKit devices hitting the market, or maybe manufacturers getting certified for HomeKit after that, because it's just a little bit easier. But it's still, people complain about not being enough products for HomeKit. Well, it's on the manufacturers, it's up to them. And a lot of them just don't want to spend the extra. It's just my 2 cents. I don't know if I'm right or not, but I just don't think a lot of them want to spend the money on, time and resources to get that certification, because it is harder to get that than the others, So that's why, you see every single day I have tons. Well, not tons. I have a lot of emails every single day from manufacturers, just these cheap no-name brands that support Alexa and Google, trying to send me stuff. And I'm just like, there's so many of them, just these cheap little products you can buy on Amazon. So I don't know.
Yeah. And it's more so that they don't necessarily need to, or like you're saying, they might not be able to hit the stringent requirements and security recommendations of what Apple provides, because with the two major RF protocols out there that are Zigbee and Z-Wave, those alliances allow for you to become part of that. And once you're part of those alliances, you can then integrate your system either through 2.4 or one of those other two RF networks into any mesh or base that is out there, like Amazon Alexa or Google Home. So it's pretty simple to get into them, and the technology already exists. It's everywhere in manufacturers' lands over there. So, do you ever find yourself limited on content creation because you only focus on Apple and the HomeKit community?
That's a good question. Maybe at times in the past, I've kind of had to rack my brain on, what I was going to make, but it's gotten easier. I think there's been just the support for HomeKit and the things that are coming out, and the advancements have made it a little bit easier. But I think that's also what's, kind of caused me to get a little creative at times. I'll make some automation videos, how to automate things, or, when Siri shortcuts came out, I started, slowly tying that stuff into, automating with your, your home and HomeKit with shortcuts and kind of the cool stuff you can do there. So it's kind of pushed me a little bit, I guess, to think outside the box a little bit as far as my content goes.
Yeah, the shortcuts and the scene creation really bridged the gap that was kind of the limitation of almost all of those devices, where instead of just having to come up with these hodgepodge ways, Alexa calls it a routine, but now you can control multiple devices from many different manufacturers with the type of touch of one button or through the voice assistant of your choice. It is a game changer.
Yeah,
I believe was
Yeah.
Apple the first one to do that?
That's a good question. I am not sure. As I know they've had scenes and automations have been tied into the home app for, I'm pretty sure, as long as I've been using it.
Yeah.
And I know from what I hear, again, I'm not using the other ones every day, but from what I hear, Google is still struggling a good bit in the automation department as far as, just automating certain things based on sensors and stuff. Alexa, I know you can do a lot with routines and things now. I'm not sure exactly how advanced that they are or when they got there, but again, Apple just makes it so simple, and to me, it seems it's just very user friendly.
Yeah.
And I think that may be one thing that's kind of working on the channel is like, if I can figure this stuff out, then pretty much anybody can. So I'll just go in there and kind of tinker around with some stuff. And, again, it's, if I can do it, probably anybody can.
Well, the GUI is much cleaner as well.
Yeah.
It's like that. It has the simple Apple-esque design. And so one cool thing that I think you've stumbled upon, which many others don't, and definitely Google does struggle with the integrations, but they have the benefit of, you can ask that device to literally Google anything. So you get a lot of voice responses and good information out of it, where there's not many people on the Google side who are like diehard. Well, I guess they're the only ones that might have it, like the Google Pixel community, much smaller in the United States than anywhere else. Amazon does not have a phone service at the moment. Maybe they will later on in the world of Amazon. Who knows?
Yeah.
But you have a die-hard community who is 100% behind the design and creation and the next generation of all and everything Apple. So not only are you just talking HomeKit, but you're talking to a community that loves the products that you're talking about.
Yeah, I think so. I think you make a very good point there. It's a diehard community, Apple fans, for sure. And HomeKit users are Apple fans. You have to have an iPhone or an iOS device, some kind of Apple device to set up HomeKit. So yeah, they cross over, and it's been an interesting little niche I kind of fell into.
Yeah, and it may be by design or not, but there's an opportunity here, and I feel like you've taken very much advantage of that using the keyword searching and things like that you do. So do you time, and from a creative process, two questions here is like, how far out are you scheduling yourself, like creatively? How are you coming up with those ideas? And then do you ever time certain videos to drop, as because Apple's they're a calendar, man. What is it, the second Tuesday in September they're going to have a launch, and then they're going to have a spring launch. So do you ever time your items and videos to drop about big things on those dates?
That's an interesting question. The thing is, I'm not really, well, I try not to be too news oriented. Like there's just so many channels and so many people that are just like, they tell you everything that was announced at the Apple events. And I generally try not to do that too much. I don't really want to be like a news source necessarily. I mean, sometimes it kind of happens, when they release some new HomeKit stuff or smart home, but I really try to just keep everything centered around smart home. So like, when they released the HomePod Mini, I mean, I was super amped about that. So, I did make a video about that when they released the new Apple TV 4K. I made a little video about that. So, if it's smart home related, I'll come up with something, but I'm not too great about planning ahead. I mean, I do have like a list of ideas and things that I'm kind of always working on. And I try to plan out a couple weeks in advance at least what the video is going to be about. But I feel like I'm always trying to get ahead, and I'm never quite there as far as actually producing the content. But that's something I'm always working on.
I feel
You've
like
also got like Evergreen. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just saying, I think everyone's gonna they get something that I could definitely work on, being ahead of everything in life. But
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say, I mean, a lot of your stuff is just like evergreen content, and especially right now when you look at the demographic of people who are buying their first houses and they're getting excited about getting in there, and they, it's like most of us are probably gonna buy an older house, right? And it's like, all right, we want to automate it, we want to make it modern, we want to do this. It's like this is kind of the way. I think it's just an awesome way to be able to, like, I mean, it's your research tool. You pop on YouTube, you pull this up, you see this home automation stuff that you're providing out there. Like it's super. I don't know. It's just like it's always. I feel like there's always going to be a place where you're going to keep getting views and people and traffic's going to be driven towards your channel, because we're like, hey, I just bought my first house, and guess what I want to do? I want to put in some whatever switches they might be, or I want to do this, and I want to make a smart home, and I want to make everything activated from my phone and be able to handle all that stuff. So I think it's like
Nice.
an awesome like evergreen field of content that's just kind of keeps growing, and people are going to keep coming back to it, and then you just keep up with the updates and what's coming out. And I guess like another question I have is like, where do you see kind of the future of this going? Like everything right now is like, it's pretty awesome. The stuff you have set up's great. Like, is there stuff in the future that you're like, all right, that's, like fire up the shower, this many degrees?
As far as like automating my home, or as far as the channel goes, automating my home,
both. Like, I mean, well, it's going to be on your channel, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
yeah, kind of
both.
both.
See from like the future of like home automation?
I feel like there's always going to be something to do. I don't know. It's just like we were talking earlier, I kind of struggled at times to come up with ideas because I'm kind of in this niche. I've kind of really had to think outside the box. I feel like now I just have more ideas than ever. And I don't know if necessarily that's because there's just more smart home stuff, or now I get a lot more kind of feedback from the audience. So I'll get a lot of ideas and stuff from them too. So that definitely helps. I'm not sure what it is, but there's just, I think Homekit, because I think we're really just the smart home landscape in general is still in its infancy. Definitely. Honestly, I think I don't really even know where we're going to be in 5 years or, even 10 years. I mean, it's hard to even imagine, honestly, to me, what we're going to be doing. I think it's going to be some really cool stuff. I do think personally that Apple tends to kind of have the long game in mind. So I wouldn't be surprised if they have some really cool stuff that they're kind of working on or thinking through for the long term that nobody else really knows about yet. There's just a lot of cool stuff that you can kind of see and kind of speculate on, like the U1 chip being in, all these different devices, and that precise location tracking, and how that could maybe tie into like automating your home and knowing what room you're in. I mean, there's just, a lot of fun stuff that could happen one day. I don't know. I'm not sure, but I think we still have a long way to go in the smart home stuff. So hopefully we'll have a lot more videos to make.
That precise location does exist.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say
this to the point where there's even systems that are out there. I want to choose my words wisely. That are out there for certain people that, depending on the hierarchy of the family, when someone walks into a room, their device can trump the settings of the TV, temperature, music that is playing or following them. So, but that's not consumer grade. And I think Apple can perfect those using the devices that they have, where there was thoughts that Alexa could eventually do that based on the geolocation that you give the dots or whatever. But I don't think that ever came to fruition.
Yeah, well, they have to know where you're at. And the U1 chip is in your watch. It's in your phone. They got it in the HomePod minis. So I don't know. It maybe it'll be nothing, but it's fun to think about what they're going to do. I think, again, they play the long game, so I think they're up to something.
They're all networked too, so they're all talking to each other through using their own
Yeah.
a
And
tether
and
or
you
whatever.
make a good point too about, Apple bringing stuff to the consumer level. It's funny, just a year ago or probably even 6 months ago, nobody was really talking about Thread as far as like a home, a smart home protocol or whatever, or wireless protocol. Well, they put it in the HomePod Mini, and now that's all anybody ever wants to talk about. I mean, every
Yeah.
single video I put out, somebody's like, "Oh, that's great," but it doesn't support Thread. So, people are all talking about Thread, and when Apple does something, that's when everybody kind of seems to get on board. So, you know,
Yeah. Well, they do kind of force the adoption too,
Yeah.
which is nice. This whole home world, this is all crazy to me because it reminds me of just like those movies we watched growing up, where it's like you walk through like from your bedroom and it's like brushing your teeth for you, and then you walk into the kitchen, like the toast pops up and like the pancakes flip over. Like I feel like we're like living in a more digital time where it's like now it's realistic stuff that you actually want to happen, but it's kind of like
yeah,
it's just funny to see like people's minds back, in the late 80s, early 90s that were like thinking of like what is it called when it's like you just have like, I don't know, they got that automation of like whatever breakfast or whatever's going to get made for them. But it's just
yeah.
funny to see like how, I don't know, some of that's kind of worked its way into like useful things, you know what I mean? And then
Yeah,
some
it's great. It's great. I have when I snooze my alarm in the morning, I have certain lights that come on, so which help me wake up. Not in my bedroom because my wife would kill me, but once I leave my bedroom, my coffee pot turns on automatically, so it's warming up. And all these things are just happening automatically. I've got all my blinds set, so at like 8 in the morning they all open automatically, throughout the whole living room. They all close at sunset. All these things are really cool because before we have a lot of windows. I'd have to go and like close and open every one of them, and now it just happens. And that's been like one of the coolest things. Every time it happens at sunset, I'm just sitting there like, I tell my wife, I'm like, this is freaking awesome, isn't it? I mean, still, it happens every day, but I'm like, this is really awesome. Do you not appreciate this? But you talking about those old movies, and we were talking about Disney earlier. Did you ever see that old that Disney smart home movie?
Yeah, when the AI goes against the family and locks them in the house.
Yeah. That's when smart home goes bad there. But it's really funny to go watch that old stuff nowadays and see kind of what they, like you said, what they were thinking back then.
Well, automated shading is something that is now at the consumer level so prevalently and becoming such a big thing, but has been around for so long. And it's interesting, even little things within it that we didn't think about, like this product called natural light optimization, where it actually tilts blinds based on the geolocation and angle of your window. Based on, you drop a pin and then it knows what window you're on. It will adjust the light in your room to do exactly what shade should do, which is protect all of the things in your home, but also give you natural light. It's not just the up and down movements that are happening these days. But once you have automated shades, just like automated lights or an automated lock or an iPad on the wall, it's something that you're like, I don't know if I could go back to flipping a switch, right?
Yeah, you're right. We've gotten spoiled.
And I think as being a guy, I think you should have a bathroom light that dims on in the middle of the night when you walk in there. So I don't know if that's in there somewhere.
That's like a number one button to press, is like so like one thing that we've talked about, that one of your number one videos is light strips, which happens to be this unbelievable like keyword search for smart homes. People love light strips. Like they love, I still don't understand the fascination behind it, because light strips in the past, especially 2 years since you really started getting into this industry, is like they have come an unbelievable way. Like from the color rendering abilities to the true light output that they give, and to like just now they have so many great features, right? You can create ambient colors that are actually beautiful and don't make everything look weird and washed out. And it's crazy how these things come so far. One of the things, I don't know where I was going with that, I'm sorry,
Well, lighting has been.
No,
for-
it's awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
light strips are great. I mean, I love light strips, and I guess other people do too. What's cool about them is you can just put them kind of anywhere, and you can hide them and create a cool like ambient glow, and really change the mood without them being out and seen. So that's what I kind of like about them. But again, I mean, we kind of established I'm just a big kid, so I've always just liked stuff like that. I mean, when I was in fifth grade, I had like black lights and neon posters and
that was the rate.
Look at the way it's absolutely been taken over by high-end luxury vehicles. Any high-level Mercedes or anything, it's all of the lighting inside of that is all adjustable mood lighting. Like, each key can be specific to each person. So it's funny. It's like I used to get made fun of, right? I'd like have like a TV with those like simple IKEA glow strips behind them, and I could like change the color, and like people would make fun of me. I was like, but I don't know. I kind of like them. It's fun. It's like it sets the scene a little bit. But now the lighting's so better that it looks like high quality, right? So you don't have this like
But even Kia now has the accent. So it's like the benefit of light strips is they can be a functional form of light, but they can also be an accent light, which is truly what most people will use it for, like coves and above your cabinets, below your cabinets, things like that. Or in cars, they're truly that beautiful accent that create the ambiance within it. And even Kias are now having that kind of accent. So a little bit more interesting is like the one thing that I haven't jumped on board, which you have some great content on, is locks, like the ability to unlock and with the M1 chip, and where you were kind of going before is like, with geofencing, which is something that Apple, I believe, brought to the table, where you can pull up to your home and now your home unlocks and the lights are on at a dim level, so you're not washed out when you walk into a room, and your coffee pot might be on or something like that, or I guess your kegerator is pouring you a beer or something when you get home from work, whatever it is. So how do you feel about talking about those kind of semi-controversial items like locks, or having your iPad plugged in 24/7 365 days a year? How do you approach kind of videos like that?
Well, I actually haven't done much stuff on locks in a while. I think, just kind of a side note, I think locks may be a good use case for Thread technology, at least in HomeKit goes. But for those that don't know, Thread is just kind of another wireless protocol, very similar to Zigbee. You just don't require an additional hub. But the difference here is that for HomeKit, really all the locks for the most part have been Bluetooth, which can make them a little laggy sometimes and not the best range. So Thread would be a good use case for that. So I think I'm kind of interested to see if we're going to get any like Thread enabled locks. I think that might be a good use in the future. But just people that are worried about that kind of stuff, they probably just don't get too into the smart home to begin with. Like I said, nothing's going to be guaranteed for sure. There are a lot of steps you can take to be more proactive with your privacy and security when you're doing this stuff, just as far as passwords go, just a lot of the basic stuff, kind of how you set up your router and stuff like that. Also, again, just by design, HomeKit is more secure than the others. And it's funny because people get so worried about this, but they don't even think about the phone that's in their pocket. Like, if you're going to worry about something, don't worry so much about that smart speaker listening to you all the time. Worry about the phone that you're carrying with you.
Your emails have been read for 20 years, so it's like
that can be said for several areas of the world right now of what's going on, of people that don't want to be tracked by something but have their cell phone on them at all times,
but have been wearing their Apple Watch with GPS for 2 years.
Exactly.
I say the same thing, Shane. I'm like, if this is what you're worried about, then you're fighting the wrong battle. You should go to a flip phone. And honestly, if you buy a flip phone in 2021, you're still getting tracked, so who cares?
I mean, even if the phone itself, Apple makes good stuff, for example, but if you're putting apps on there that are tracking you and listening, I mean, it could be doing all that stuff, and you just have to be aware and conscious of it. But it is funny because people don't even think twice about that. But oh, I'm not going to put a speaker in my house; it'll be listening to me all the time, and
Good. This is the conversations I have with my wife and my dogs and my 1.5-year-old son who doesn't speak. So I feel bad for the person who has to listen to the government. Like,
Yeah.
And I'm not too high profile either, so I'm
Yeah.
not too worried about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, get bored pretty quick, huh?
Well, what we need, Shane, is we need more people like you that are out there. I tell you what, if I could get someone like you just to consult my parents in their house and say, hey, here's all these things we need to do, smart home automate, man, their life would be easier and they don't even know it. So yeah, I think yeah, what we should do is, I guess we could roll this out. I think you're
that's some
in a smart home right now. You know what I mean? It's the place to go if you've got the Homekit. Go to Shane's channel, check him out.
Thank you.
I think
I got a few questions.
What's that?
You want to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah,
I got two.
Yeah.
I got two, and then we'll let JP roll it out. Okay. So,
well, can you? Is that
we
you?
Lost you?
Oh, that's me. Sorry.
Okay.
I got a new battery. No, I got a new battery, and it's my camera. Sorry. Embarrassing. Second time. 2 for 2, guys.
That's
2 for 2.
Okay.
That's all right.
All right. Okay.
And by the way, for any Instagram handles, there he is. He's back. For any Instagram handles that we get wrong, not our fault.
It's 100% on purpose, and I am mad at you, and that's why I pronounced your name wrong.
That's
right. I'm just kidding. So this one is very easy to do. James Apple TV asks, will there be another HomePod given the fact that Apple gave us the new Apple TV 4K?
Will there be another HomePod? I don't know. It's funny because people are always speculating what Apple's doing, and I don't really focus too much on rumors because so many people do that just nonstop, and half the time they're wrong. So I don't really put too much effort into trying to figure out what's ahead. I kind of just try to enjoy the stuff that's in front of us that we have and utilize it. But with that said, I wouldn't be surprised if they do create some sort of HomePod, different than the HomePod Mini. There was not too long ago, there was some rumors about them creating some sort of touch panel display, maybe combined with a speaker, like a HomePod iPad combo kind of thing, sort of like I think it's the Echo Show and the Google Nest Hub. And I've said this for a while. I think they need to create something like that. I don't know if you would call that a HomePod necessarily, but I think they need to create something like that just because there's a void right now in the marketplace on the Apple HomeKit side. That's just a product that I think consumers want. And they need to, just like I said way back when with the HomePod. I mean, when the first HomePod came out years ago, I was like, that's great, but we need a small one. We need a small one. Yeah. And it took them a long time, but they finally did. And you see, once they released that, everybody started buying them because they're just a lot more accessible, and that's just what they need in order to grow the platform and to kind of get into more homes. So I hope we see sort of a touch iPad, HomePod combo with it'll need some sort of software, maybe some version of tvOS that runs on it. I don't know. But that's what I would like to see. I don't know if that really answered the question, but
I think that answered exactly, because you're right. You might not have given him it's coming, but if you were to say what it is, what it should be, and I hadn't even thought of that all they have is they're still in the dot phase, right? Of Amazon, where they need to get to some kind of next generation. And you're not going to stick an iPad on the wall for every use case, but you do have a use case for.
Yeah. I mean, it's the iPad on the wall is really cool. And I mean, I like it, but they could do so much more with a dedicated display. And if they do release another HomePod, I mean, it's just going to have to be different. They discontinued the old one. for a reason. It, you know, is a great speaker, but it just didn't sell. So if they do come up with something else, I think it'll have to be different. You know, it'll probably have to be a little bit cheaper. So
maybe a little more
we'll
dedicated and lighter from just like the software interface. That way they don't cannibalize any of their iPad sales. Was like what I would think of it.
Yeah, we're not TV.
Yep, exactly.
Right.
All right, my final question is from Katerina Saba, and she asked, "What is your favorite, connected device?" Paraphrasing here.
Oh man, that's so hard to choose. That's like having to choose your favorite child.
This is great because I got this.
I have so many. Honestly, it really changes a lot. I get really into something kind of that I set up and that I'm using. Like I said, I'm really enjoying those blinds right now. There are some pros and cons with them in particular. The ones that I'm using, I'll probably do a review on those, but just having that automated has been really awesome. And then I don't know if I can pick two. If I had to pick one more, I'll go with the Logitech Circle View doorbell. Has been really great, just because it's kind of new still for me, and it's just a product I've been waiting for a long time. I never put a Ring out there. I was waiting on something with native HomeKit support, very patiently, and I finally got something, and I've really enjoyed having that. It's so cool when somebody rings the doorbell and I get that little pop-up video on my Apple TV when they're watching TV, and you can see who's at the door, and it's like magic. So it's really fun.
Oh wow, I had no idea it had that feature. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool. My father-in-law was over the other day watching TV downstairs, and somebody rang the doorbell, and thing popped up there on the TV, and people are kind of blown away by that. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, JP, you want to roll us out?
Yeah, let's do it. Here's what's going to happen. I've got let's see, we've got here a little seltzer. So what we're going to do is, Mike's looks like he's got a beer on his end. I've got
a fancy seltzer.
A fancy seltzer. What we're going to do is, the honor's all on this side of the table. We are going to crack these open. We're going to start drinking. We're going to start chugging. And when we're chugging, go ahead and tell us, where to find you on YouTube, what you got going on, and what's coming up with your channel, and any other social or plugs that you might want to run with.
All right.
So we'll kick this off. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Tell us what's happening in your world.
Well, thank y'all for having me. It's been a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. Yeah, you guys can find me over at YouTube, youtube.com/Shane Creates, and over on Instagram and Twitter, Shane Creates, pretty much everywhere. So lots more HomeKit smart home stuff on the way. Nice
Perfect
job.
timing. Didn't finish the whole thing, but that's all right. Great timing.
That was it.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's great. It's a great time crunch. It gets you right where you want to be. But thanks so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. And man, your videos are amazing. For anybody who is looking to get into this, maybe they're a beginner or they're a little bit more advanced, look at that channel. Great ways to kind of automate your home and do some cool stuff as well.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me, man. I really appreciate it. It's been fun.
Thanks, Shane. This has been awesome. And so all of the information about his channels will be in the show notes or in the YouTube description. And thank you so much for watching and listening. And make sure you subscribe and like his videos. They help every day. As another fellow creator, we look forward to it. And on a personal note, I can't wait to see what comes next. I'm going to go immediately and watch this video doorbell video that you have, because I want to learn about that one. Awesome. And there might be a purchase for myself tonight, so we'll see.
Be careful, man. It's addicting.
Very much so. Thanks, Shane. It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.